From Nina Thomas showing up with a loaded gun at an Airbnb to confront Earl Thomas, Miko Grimes ruining Brent Grimes' career with her social media obsession, to Michelle Rodriguez exposing Ryan Shazier's cheating, these are NFL stories where the people closest to the players became their biggest downfall. Miko Grimes and Brent Grimes. Let's start with a story that perfectly illustrates just how powerful social media can be when it's wielded without a filter and without any concern for the professional consequences. Brent Grimes was, by all accounts, a legitimately elite cornerback. The man earned 4 Pro Bowl selections throughout his career, which is not easy to do at one of the most demanding positions in all of football. He was the kind of defender who could lock down a #1 receiver on any given Sunday, the kind of player teams build their secondary around. And yet, despite all of that talent, despite all of those accolades, Brent Grimes found himself becoming persona non grata in NFL circles. And the reason had almost nothing to do with his play on the field. It had everything to do with his wife, Miko. During Brent's time with the Miami Dolphins from 2013 to 2015, Miko Grimes turned into something of a social media wrecking ball. She used Twitter the way most people use a diary, except this diary was public, unfiltered, and aimed squarely at the people who signed her husband's paychecks. She mocked quarterback Ryan Tannehill relentlessly, calling him ineffective and unworthy of the starting job. She blasted coaches for their play-calling decisions. She went after reporters who covered the Dolphins negatively, and on more than one occasion, she made what could only be described as violent threats against members of the media. One particularly explosive rant saw Miko accusing the entire NFL of being the shadiest professional sport in existence, filled with disrespect from top to bottom. She attacked Dolphins owner Stephen Ross for sticking with Tannehill and suggested the entire organization was mismanaged from the ownership level down. These weren't private conversations, these were public declarations broadcast to thousands of followers, and they created an absolutely toxic atmosphere around Brent. The fallout was swift and devastating. In March of 2016, the Dolphins released Brent Grimes, and owner Stephen Ross made it abundantly clear that Miko's behavior was a significant factor in that decision. But it didn't stop there. Reports from Bleacher Report indicated that at least 3 NFL general managers flat out refused to sign Brent because of his wife's antics. 3 separate teams looked at a 4-time Pro Bowler and said, "No thanks, not worth the headache." Think about that for a moment. A player with that caliber of talent being turned away not because of his ability, but because of the distraction his wife represented. Brent eventually landed a 2-year, $16.5 million deal with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, so the man did get paid, but the damage was already done. Now, Miko Grimes was far from the only NFL wife who couldn't resist the pull of social media when frustration boiled over. In fact, there was another wife on another team who was doing the exact same thing at almost the exact same time, and the consequences were just as brutal. Tarika Cromartie and Antonio Cromartie. If the story of Miko Grimes taught us anything, it's that NFL front offices have zero tolerance for public drama originating from a player's household, and yet it seems like not everyone got the memo, because the case of Tarika Cromartie and her husband, Antonio Cromartie, played out in an eerily similar fashion, with consequences that were just as damaging. Antonio Cromartie was an immensely gifted cornerback. The man had all the physical tools you could ask for: length, speed, ball skills, and he showcased those abilities across stints with multiple teams, most notably the New York Jets, where he earned Pro Bowl recognition. He was the kind of player who could change a game with a single interception return, the kind of athlete who made offensive coordinators rethink their entire game plan. But talent, as we've established, can only take you so far when the noise surrounding your personal life becomes impossible to ignore. Tarika Cromartie had developed a pattern of airing her frustrations with Antonio's team on social media, which, in the world of professional football, is essentially the equivalent of walking into your spouse's office and loudly criticizing the boss. In 2016, after the Jets suffered a humiliating 49-9 loss to the Cincinnati Bengals, a loss that was embarrassing by any standard, Tarika took to Twitter to express her feelings, stating, "This is just embarrassing, the whole team failed to show up today." Now, on the surface, that might seem like a fairly innocuous comment. Fans say things like that every Sunday, but when it's coming from a player's wife, it carries an entirely different weight, and this wasn't a one-time slip. Tarika had a well-documented history of targeting the Jets' performance and management in her online posts. Each comment, each tweet, each public grievance put Antonio in an increasingly awkward position with his employers and his teammates. NFL organizations value loyalty and discretion above almost everything else. When a player's spouse is publicly trashing the team, it reflects directly on the player, and it creates a perception, fair or not, that the player shares those sentiments but is using his wife as a mouthpiece. Antonio was already navigating a complicated personal life. The man is famously a father to 14 children, and the child support obligations that come with that were a well-known source of financial pressure. Add in the public perception problem created by Tariq's outbursts, and you had a player whose stock was dropping rapidly, not because of what he did on the football field, but because of the circus that surrounded his name. By 2017, Antonio was released by the Jets. While injuries certainly played a role in that decision, insiders suggested that the family drama made him significantly less appealing to other teams looking for veteran help. He bounced around the league briefly before retiring in 2018, and reports indicated that the ongoing drama even affected his marketability for post-career opportunities like broadcasting. The Cromartie situation is a textbook example of how the modern era of social media has given wags, wives, and girlfriends an unprecedented platform, and with that platform comes the very real potential to inadvertently or intentionally undermine the careers of the men they love. But while Miko and Terrica were firing off tweets that annoyed front offices, the next woman on our list went a step further. She picked up the phone, called into a live radio station, and publicly demanded a trade on her husband's behalf. And her husband just so happened to be a Super Bowl MVP. Brenda Warner and Kurt Warner. Now here's a case that's a little bit different from the others on this list, because it involves a woman whose intentions were genuinely good, but whose execution created a firestorm that nearly derailed one of the most remarkable stories in NFL history. Kurt Warner's journey to NFL stardom is the stuff of legend. This is a man who went from stocking shelves at a grocery store to winning the Super Bowl MVP award, a rags to riches story so improbable that they literally made a movie about it. He led the St. Louis Rams' greatest show on turf offense to a Super Bowl title, and he did it with an arm that could make every throw in the book and a mental toughness forged through years of adversity. Kurt Warner wasn't just a good quarterback, he was an inspiration, living proof that it's never too late to chase your dreams. But in 2002, while Kurt was still quarterbacking the Rams, his wife Brenda made a decision that sent shockwaves through the organization. After Kurt suffered a broken hand during the season, Brenda called into a local radio station to defend her husband, and she didn't just offer a mild comment of support, she went on the offensive. She accused the coaching staff of lying about the severity of Kurt's injury. She claimed that she, not the team's medical staff, was the one who insisted on an X-ray to properly diagnose the problem. And then, in a moment that made every front office executive in the league collectively wince, she stated publicly that Kurt would seek a trade if the situation didn't improve. Now, you have to understand the context here. In the NFL, the chain of command is sacred. Coaches coach, players play, and families stay out of the internal workings of the team. When a player's wife calls into a radio station and publicly demands a trade on her husband's behalf, it doesn't just raise eyebrows, it fundamentally undermines the player's relationship with the organization. Suddenly, Kurt wasn't just a quarterback dealing with an injury, he was a quarterback whose wife was making demands and accusing the coaching staff of incompetence on public airwaves. The tension within the Rams organization was immediate and palpable. Kurt's performance dipped amid the controversy, and he was eventually benched later that season, a decision that many believe was influenced, at least in part, by the toxic dynamic Brenda had created. Now, to Kurt's credit, he bounced back in spectacular fashion. He resurfaced with the Arizona Cardinals and led them all the way to the Super Bowl in 2009, cementing his legacy as one of the great comeback stories in football history. But the 2002 incident lingered in NFL perceptions for years. Many analysts believe the drama accelerated Kurt's exit from St. Louis and potentially cost him endorsement deals during a period when he was still playing at a high level. Brenda, a former Marine, has since embraced a far more supportive public role, and the Warners have built a beautiful life together. But her early intervention stands as a powerful reminder that even the most well-intentioned advocacy can backfire spectacularly when it crosses the line from private support to public confrontation. Still, as damaging as Brenda's radio call was, Kurt Warner at least got the chance to rebuild his career and write a new chapter. The next player on our list wasn't nearly as lucky, because when his marriage collided with a domestic violence arrest in front of HBO cameras, there was no second act waiting on the other side. Evelyn Lozada and Chad Johnson. Chad Johnson, or Ocho Cinco, as many fans will always remember him, was one of the most electrifying and entertaining wide receivers the NFL has ever seen. 6 Pro Bowl appearances, over 11,000 career receiving yards, a personality so magnetic and so unapologetically bold that he literally changed his legal name to match his jersey number. Chad wasn't just a football player, he was a brand, a cultural phenomenon, the kind of athlete who transcended the sport and became a genuine pop culture figure. He had endorsements, he had a massive fan following, and he had a charisma that could light up any room he walked into. And then, in the span of a few devastating weeks in the summer of 2012, it all came crashing down, and the catalyst was his short-lived marriage to reality television star Evelyn Lozada. The couple had married in July of 2012, and by all outward appearances, it seemed like a match made in celebrity heaven. 2 larger-than-life personalities joining forces. But just weeks after the wedding, the relationship imploded in the most public and ugly way imaginable. The incident began when Lozada discovered a receipt for condoms in their car. An argument ensued, and the confrontation escalated rapidly. Chad headbutted Evelyn, causing a 3-inch laceration on her forehead. Police were called to the scene, and Johnson was arrested on charges of domestic violence. The timing could not have been worse or more public. The Miami Dolphins, who had recently signed Johnson, were in the middle of filming the HBO series Hard Knocks, which provides cameras everywhere access to an NFL team's preseason preparations. The incident aired for millions of viewers to see, and the Dolphins' response was immediate and unequivocal. They cut Chad Johnson the very next day. No second chances. No waiting for the legal process to play out. Just a swift and decisive severing of ties. Lozada filed for divorce almost immediately, and the proceedings were finalized by September of 2012, making it one of the shortest celebrity marriages in recent memory. Johnson pleaded no contest to the domestic violence charge and was sentenced to probation and anger management classes. He later admitted publicly that 3 seconds of lost temper had cost him his entire career. Lozada, for her part, maintained that the abuse had been ongoing, painting a picture of a relationship that was volatile long before the condom receipt incident brought everything to a head. Chad Johnson never played another game in the NFL. He attempted comebacks in the Canadian Football League and other minor leagues, but the damage to his reputation was irreversible. The endorsements that had once flowed freely vanished overnight. The charismatic showman, who had been one of the league's most marketable personalities, was now defined entirely by a mugshot and a domestic violence arrest. While Johnson himself bore the responsibility for the physical assault, it was the collision of his world with Lozada's high-profile reality TV existence that amplified a private argument into a career-ending public spectacle. He now works in the media and has rebuilt parts of his public image, but his NFL legacy remains permanently overshadowed by that fateful night in 2012. And if you think a headbutt and a reality TV scandal was dramatic, wait until you hear about the next couple on this list, because this one involved a Pro Bowl wide receiver, a member of one of the biggest music groups of the 90s, and an entire mansion going up in flames. Nina Thomas and Earl Thomas. Earl Thomas was, without exaggeration, one of the greatest safeties to ever play the game of football. A first-round pick out of the University of Texas, he spent 9 seasons with the Seattle Seahawks, where he became the heartbeat of the legendary Legion of Boom defense, one of the most dominant defensive units in NFL history. 7 Pro Bowl selections, 3 first-team All-Pro honors, a Super Bowl ring. Earl Thomas had everything you could possibly want on a football resume, and he was on a trajectory that pointed directly at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And then, in April of 2020, a single night blew all of that to pieces. The incident unfolded when Nina Thomas, Earl's wife, tracked his location to an Airbnb rental property where Earl was allegedly with another woman, and according to reports, his brother. Nina arrived at the property armed with a loaded pistol, and what followed was a confrontation that could have easily ended in tragedy. She reportedly pointed the gun at Earl's head, and the situation escalated to the point where police were called. Nina was arrested and charged with burglary of a residence with intent to commit assault with a deadly weapon, a felony charge that underscored just how dangerous the situation had become. The fallout was swift and severe. Earl Thomas was already on thin ice with the Baltimore Ravens, who had signed him to a 4-year, $55 million contract in 2019. He had been involved in a physical altercation with a teammate during practice, and the organization was growing increasingly frustrated with what they perceived as character concerns. The gun incident with Nina gave the Ravens the ammunition, no pun intended, they needed to part part ways. They released Thomas, citing conduct detrimental to the team. And just like that, a $55 million investment was written off. No other team would touch him. Despite being just 31 years old and still physically capable of playing at a high level, Earl Thomas's phone simply did not ring. The combination of the domestic scandal, the teammate altercation, and the general perception that Thomas was a walking liability made him radioactive in the eyes of every front office in the league. He attempted multiple comebacks, expressing his desire to return to football, but the family turmoil had effectively ended his NFL career years before his body would have forced him out. It's one of the most tragic cases on this list because Earl Thomas had a legitimate case for the Hall of Fame. The talent was there. The resume was there. But the off-field chaos, spearheaded by a confrontation with his wife that involved a loaded firearm, derailed everything. Nina Thomas showed up with a gun because she caught her husband cheating. The next story also involves a woman making accusations against an NFL player she was involved with. But unlike Nina, this woman was a reality TV star, and the player she accused was at the height of his dominance as one of the most terrifying pass rushers the league had ever seen. Janae Palmer and Ray Rice. And now we arrive at what is arguably the most infamous case on this entire list, and one that fundamentally changed the way the National Football League handles domestic violence. The story of Ray Rice and Janae Palmer isn't just a cautionary tale about relationships gone wrong. It's a watershed moment in American sports, a scandal so seismic that it forced one of the most powerful organizations on the planet to completely overhaul its policies. Ray Rice was a do-it-all running back for the Baltimore Ravens, drafted in the second round in 2008. He was the engine of the Ravens offense, a versatile weapon who could run between the tackles, catch passes out of the backfield, and pick up crucial blitz pickups in pass protection. 3 Pro Bowl selections, a Super Bowl ring in 2013, over 6,000 career rushing yards, and 37 touchdowns in just 6 seasons. Ray Rice wasn't just a good player. He was the face of the franchise, a beloved figure in Baltimore who seemed destined for a long and lucrative career. All of that evaporated on the night of February 15th, 2014, inside an elevator at the Revel Casino in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Surveillance footage, later obtained and published by TMZ, captured the horrifying sequence of events. Rice and his then-fiancée, Janae Palmer, entered the elevator, where an argument quickly escalated. Rice punched Palmer squarely in the face, knocking her unconscious against the elevator railing. He then dragged her limp, motionless body out of the elevator and left her face down on the floor. Both were arrested that night. Palmer's charge was eventually dropped, while Rice's was upgraded to third-degree aggravated assault following a grand jury indictment. In a decision that shocked many, the couple went ahead and married on March 28, 2014, just one day after the indictment. The initial video released by TMZ on February 19th showed only the aftermath, Rice dragging Palmer's unconscious body, but even that was enough to set off alarm bells. The NFL initially suspended Rice for just 2 games, a penalty so lenient that it drew widespread outrage and accusations that the league was actively downplaying domestic violence. Then, on September 8th, TMZ released the full elevator footage showing the actual punch, and the reaction was nothing short of volcanic. The Ravens released Rice that same day. The NFL suspended him indefinitely. His career, for all practical purposes, was over at the age of 27. Now, here's where Janae Palmer's role in the aftermath becomes a complex and deeply debated element of this story. In a May 2014 press conference, Janae publicly apologized for her role in the incident that night, a statement that drew fierce criticism from domestic violence advocates who argued that the victim should never be made to apologize. After the full video was released, Janae posted on Instagram defending Rice, blaming the media for invading their privacy and exacerbating their family's trauma. Additional footage from December 2014 showed the couple in handcuffs after the incident, with Janae initially pushing Rice away, but later nuzzling him in a separate elevator while detained. Janae's public defenses of Rice, her willingness to marry him after the assault, and her framing of the media as the real enemy created a narrative that some saw as enabling, while others recognized it as the deeply complicated reality of domestic violence. Regardless of where you fall on that spectrum, the undeniable consequence was that the couple's handling of the aftermath kept the story in the headlines far longer than it might have otherwise lasted, making it impossible for Rice to quietly move on or find a new team. Rice appealed his suspension and won reinstatement in November 2014, but no team would touch him. He entered a pre-trial intervention program, avoided jail time, and has since reinstated reinvented himself as an advocate against domestic violence, speaking at events and coaching youth football. The scandal prompted the NFL to implement a new domestic violence policy with a 6-game baseline suspension for first offenses, a direct result of the outrage generated by this case. Ray Rice's story remains a pivotal and painful chapter in NFL history, and Janae Palmer's role in the public narrative, however you interpret it, is an inseparable part of that legacy. Every story we've covered so far involved players whose active careers were cut short or damaged by off-field chaos, but our final entry proves that even after the cleats come off and the jersey is hung up for good, a spouse's actions can still reach back and tear down everything a player has built in retirement, especially when the weapon of choice is a screenshot. Michelle Rodriguez and Ryan Shazier. Ryan Shazier's story is unlike any other on this list because the destruction didn't happen on the football field or in a courtroom. It happened on Instagram in a matter of minutes through a series of screenshots that shattered the carefully constructed image of a man who had become one of the most inspirational figures in modern sports. Shazier was a dynamic linebacker for the Pittsburgh Steelers, selected 15th overall in the 2014 NFL Draft. Known for his blazing speed and instinctive coverage skills, he earned 2 Pro Bowl nods and was a critical piece of Pittsburgh's defense. But on December 4th, 2017, Shazier's playing career came to a devastating and abrupt end when he suffered a spinal cord injury during a game against the Cincinnati Bengals, leaving him paralyzed from the waist down. What followed was one of the most incredible recovery stories in sports. Through sheer determination and intensive rehabilitation, Shazier regained the ability to walk, danced at his own wedding, and officially retired in 2020. He wrote a book called Walking Miracle, became a sought-after motivational speaker, and built a brand around resilience, family, and faith. His wife, Michelle Rodriguez, had been there through every agonizing step of that journey. She was the woman standing beside him during the darkest days of his recovery, the woman who announced the Steelers draft pick in 2018 as a show of solidarity, the woman the public saw as the rock upon which Ryan's comeback was built, which is exactly why what happened on November 29th, 2023 hit so hard. That day, Michelle posted, and then quickly deleted, a series of screenshots on Instagram that alleged Ryan had been carrying on an affair with another woman named Marie. In her caption, she wrote, "A person that loves his family, this is what they do to their family. The wife that has been there for him since day one. Infidelity at its finest. I can't sit here and keep hiding anymore. You can have it. I deserve better. This is Ryan. He's a liar and a cheater." The text messages she shared started innocuously enough, but escalated into explicit territory, including suggestive photos and references to sexual content. Michelle, a real estate agent, implied she had discovered the messages on his laptop. The posts spread across the internet like wildfire before they could be taken down, and suddenly, the man whose name had been synonymous with overcoming impossible odds was trending for an entirely different reason. Shazier responded through TMZ, confirming the separation. "Michelle and I have been living apart and are currently separated. As we work through what comes next for our family, I ask for privacy and prayers." Notably, he did not deny the infidelity allegations. On January 10th, 2024, Shazier filed for divorce in Broward County, Florida, citing an irretrievably broken marriage. While Shazier's playing career had already ended due to injury, Michelle's public exposure of his alleged infidelity dealt a significant blow to his post-NFL brand. His entire second act, the speaking engagements, the book, the foundation work, was built on the image of a devoted family man who overcame paralysis with his loved ones by his side. The scandal didn't erase his physical accomplishments, but it tarnished the narrative in a way that affected opportunities, sponsorships, and public goodwill. It's a reminder that even after a player's career on the field is over, the actions of a spouse can still reshape a legacy in ways that no comeback can fix. Thanks for watching. Check out other cards on the screen.